Good late Tuesday, early Wednesday, meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving you an update on that weather situation across the region. You do see here a lot of 70 type numbers on the board in terms of those temperatures, but we still have 80 toward south side of Jacksonville, St. Augustine here, and even in toward parts of Glenn County, Georgia. So that does tell the weather story. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things, it's still pretty warm out there. I mean, some 80s, or so. 8+ degree readings as we're looking at that side of our area as well, west and south. But it's definitely that time of year where we're in that summertime pattern. This isn't just serious heat like what we've dealt with. Like yesterday on that Tuesday, we had readings there, in those upper 90s. We were showing you our severe weather covered in parts of the region. And then we also had quite a bit cooler air and or other parts of our area, like Waycross area, upper 90s, but Marion was in the mid 70s, like cooler than what it is right now here in the night. I mean, because they had all that rain there. Some areas had a half foot of rain or so. I mean, we're looking at 11 a.m. right now at 79, but at one point yesterday it was like 75 in the afternoon in Marion County because they had all that rain, that half foot of rain in some backyards there on that Tuesday. Had those flash flood warnings and the like be the story, but we're going to have the pattern where we have storms around, and then we're going to kind of get back to where we have this, a little bit less covered, a lot less covered ultimately. And then the heat, where we could get some spots close to 100 degrees in a few backyards before we have storms come back. And again, here, more widespread as we look. But, in the spots that don't have the storms at certain times, it could get quite a bit hotter. Other spots won't get as warm here when the storm activity is around. So, kind of like typical summertime in some ways, but not in all ways. I mean, on Tuesday, it wasn't really a typical summertime as we were looking at things. Really, I mean, on that hyper-local level, or like Marion County, how cool it was. Even Stark area, we only got in the mid-80s for a high. That was the coolest high in at least the last 25 days here, so all month in July. The coolest high temperature we had because of the cloud cover around and the moisture in the region earlier on. Some rain, about a third of an inch or east of Stark on that rain gauge. So an odd weather pattern in that way, but the general outlook for the next 7 days in the broad view is typical summertime. But on the, micro scale level, not so much, I guess you could say. As we go ahead and broaden things, I do want to show you guys a look here. You see a flash flood warning in North Georgia right now, Gwinnett County under that for another hour or so around Lawrenceville. They're watching that situation, but the rain's breaking up there. As we look back at some of these amounts, they've seen quite a bit of precip there, 4 inches give or take in some areas there. But as we get toward the north central part of the country on that Wednesday, you do see a tornado risk from around Eau Claire up into toward parts here of a northern, far northern Wisconsin, the Rhinelander area under this risk there, as we even get into parts of Michigan. So, tornado watch from Minneapolis to the Rhinelander area, not out of question. Got to watch out for that potential slight risk overall here. Goes quite a bit bigger for the damage and wind potential. And speaking of damage and winds here, I know we're looking at a storm that's keepable without right now in toward Iowa in Buchanan County. We have 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts possible there until about 1:15 a.m. That's something that those local folks are watching there in that part of the country in the Midwest. So definitely a storyline there. 1:15 a.m. Central Time. Severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Buchanan County. And in New Mexico, there's a flash flood warning for portions of Otero County out that way. We've had some rain there earlier on. They've had big flooding problems. The burn scars there. As we're looking in parts of that state. Again, as we get back toward the local view there, you see some storms off of Flagler County. And in the models, it's hard to handle, when we have these storms develop here in the, night like this. And it's kind of odd. We had all the moisture around, just some untapped potential. As we look toward that Wednesday morning, this is what radar could look similar to at 8 a.m. It's not a guarantee it's going to set up like this, but you show some development again on the radar with moisture coming in. The longer we kind of wait, though, to get this in there, the more severe threat we could have. In Tallahassee waited longer. They had some severe weather, gust about 60. One report at the airport, in fact, on that Tuesday there in toward Leon County. And then as we look here throughout the afternoon, this is like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Each of these is 1 hour. You see quite a development in the afternoon. This is 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7. That could lead to some, the way these are moving kind of slow in this, could lead to some flooding or flash flooding in some backyard. We'll have to watch for that. Here's some excessive rainfall here as we look and as we track. And this gets you into that early Thursday morning here. As we're looking, you see some more development, maybe in South Georgia, some stuff kind of just hanging around, which can lead to some flooding. So we'll have to watch for that as we get, this is Thursday afternoon here. Once we go ahead and give you a look here at the situation, you see east of Flagler County, some heavy, again, the heavy rain, a little bit of lightning out there, but not too much on the radar at all here. Last 12 hours, you know, didn't see the whole picture of what happened in Flagler, you know, or not Flagler County, but they had some max in there, but, you know, you see it, you know, there toward Palm Coast, but I'm talking about Marion County and that zone, Roy. You know, they didn't show all that because that was before the last 12 hours. That's how early all that was on that Tuesday. But you do see 3 inches, 4 inches toward parts of Ocala and Jefferson, some power outages in that vicinity. And in South Georgia, we had a flash flood warning for parts of Coffee County there. Pop ups. That was a noteworthy there as we're looking and as we're tracking things. But let me go ahead. I do have it on our other source act so we can kind of say that storm total situation. As we get on in there, you're able to see some of this gray indicative of a half foot of rain in some of these areas north of Ocala on that Tuesday. You know, that's significant. It's lucky that it wasn't right in Ocala because of the more urban nature of things. It would have made things, you know, even more serious. The impact isn't generally going to be quite as bad in an area where there's more grass, more areas for the rainwater to run off. But if you have half foot, all this fall more in here, it would have really been probably a life-threatening situation more so in the ward Ocala proper. And just it's not just because of the population. Unlike a tornado, of course, you know, if it hits and there's more homes there, and it, you know, it hits more homes because of the population, then it could still be rated the same as in one well-built home. But it's a situation with the flooding. It's actually worse, the magnitude in terms of the meteorological strength of it, because of the urban nature. You know, of course, you know, out toward Texas is a little different because of the river system, but in our area, generally when you have the flooding in a more urban area, that's going to make things more life-threatening, you know, because of just how there's more concrete around us. Instead of maybe, you know, the water going down in just a handful of minutes, it's just going to build up, build up, and build up. And then, you know, you're just going to have a situation where that flash flooding is a lot more dangerous. And if there's like just 6, you know, inches of water, that's still pretty bad. But, you know, it could end up being a couple feet of water over the road instead. You know, 6 inches can knock you down, but a couple feet of water can really be a problem here. You know, and because of the concrete in the more urban areas, you know, that same amount of rain in a more urban area can get that water, instead of being 6 inches, it can be up to 2 feet, maybe something like that, on the roadway. So the impact there is actually quite a bit, you know, more noteworthy meteorologically as well, even if it's the same amount of rain. I know, you know, that's something most of you probably understand, but I can get a little confused in there. But I just want to try to explain that, you know, we have some areas in Alachua that got quite a bit as well, looking back in the timeline, and Union, you know, as we're looking back here, it's been pretty rainy here in the period. You see Levy, they had some big problems in terms of the precip adding up north of Inglis there. More rural though versus urban, but still, it's got to be noteworthy, you know, in terms of keeping tabs on all of that. So, as we're trying to give you guys the very latest. So, I know this cut off because this is how far the estimates go out from the Jacksonville radar. So that's why this kind of looks like the olden days when you look at radar and the beam. It only got so far. Well, this is, you know, as far as this kind of goes out on here. But as we go ahead and you just see I brought in a little more. You see Coffee County noteworthy there on Bridge in there. And quite a bit of rain on that Tuesday night up there in northern Coffee County. Now, the area that we've been watching around here actually has now got tagged by the Hurricane Center, but we're not too concerned. 10% chance to develop once it gets in the Gulf here to spin that we're looking at, but it's something here that we're not, you know, terribly concerned about here. The chances aren't as high as the last, you know, area that we were watching there last week as we were tracking things, you know, as we were monitoring things here meteorologically. So, you know, that's something to kind of bear in mind as we're dealing with the situation. So again, we have all that precipitable water value type of situation that was showing up there, you know, and all the different mesoanalysis tools and the like, though. But as we're just trying to give you guys the very latest here on the scenario, so I'm just trying to keep you guys up to date here for sure as we try to give you guys those latest details here. It's just important, you know, just important to kind of stay on top of things here for sure. But as we go ahead and see there, the Atlantic hurricane season running through November 30th. Dexter will be the next name. We never got it last week. You know, so it's still up for grabs per se, as we'll be watching that, you know, potential eventually come into play somewhere. You know, Dexter will ultimately develop somewhere in the Atlantic, whether it's, you know, in the next week or it could be a few weeks. Who knows? And then Aaron, after that's the name, you know, that follows it. I see there are chances, I know the season runs through November 30th, a higher chance of storm action here in terms of the percentages we get, you know, into August, later August, or, you know, early October is the peak season. You know, the strongest storms generally form that time frame, not always, and then that's when you generally have a higher chance of maybe more than one storm in the basin at a certain time, so you just got to remain alert here. You know, that doesn't mean they're coming our way. You know, you could have just one bad hurricane like Dennis in 05 in early July, and, you know, came toward parts of the Florida Panhandle, but you know, it only takes one, just like Andrew in 92, towards South Florida. So you just got to remain alert, obviously, here as we're tracking things, as we're monitoring things. But we're going to keep our eyes on the situation here, obviously, as conditions warrant, you know, in terms of if anything actually does evolve here. You know, we'll be letting you guys know, obviously. So, see if there's any questions or comments right now. I don't see any. I know it is late, but I appreciate everybody tuning in on all the different platforms as we go ahead and show you here the rainfall forecast next 7 days here. As we're tracking things, you can kind of see here toward the Gulf of Mexico, some of those oranges there. You can see several inches out that way, as we've been, you know, alluding to. And in our area, inch or two on average, especially in North Florida, maybe closer to just the inch on average in South Georgia. But this is, you know, just the broad brush. Some spots will get a lot more, some will get less. So keep that in mind here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking. I know you can get the interactive radar, cloudy.com, and as we go ahead and say here that the flood alert information, I know it's very important to keep in mind here, you know, these tips and these, you know, just really informational breakdowns on things, because, you know, this stuff is just so important here, all these different details. You know, flood warning, longer term flooding, gotta be careful still, you know, can have problems still. Gotta remember to turn around, don't drown if there's a road flooded. But the flash flood warnings generally indicate a rapidly worsening flooding potential. I know we had some of that in Marion County on that Tuesday, but we never got, you know, that upgrade to considerable catastrophic, which we would have been on for, if we, you know, if we had that. I had a week rotation with that actually at one point. I was watching it there, ready to cut in if I needed to, but we had posted all those alerts there, you know, all the ones there when they got issued initially on Facebook, there on Twitter /X. If it would have got into Ocala proper, would have come on, because again, that worsens the flooding. You know, even if you get the same amount of rain, it'd be a lot worse in a more urban area because of the concrete and the like here. The more, you know, type of concrete there that's around means there's less places for the rainwater to run off. I know, you know, those flash flood warnings, even the lower level ones like we had Tuesday morning, set up with the radios to indicate more urgent concern in the flood warnings. But then when a phone alert goes off on the emergency, you know, type of system that we have there, the wireless emergency alerts, you know, that's because it's considerable catastrophic. They used to all go off, but they changed that because it was kind of causing too many alerts for folks where people were turning them off, and we don't want that. So it's generally, you know, wireless emergency alerts. There's certain things that'll go off in certain areas at times, but generally in a more broad sense, Amber Alerts and then the flash flood warnings that are considerable catastrophic for your location and then any tornado warning for your location. Those will go up on those wireless emergency alerts on your phone if you have them enabled. And the severe thunderstorm warnings when you have, I believe it's 2.75 inch hail or bigger, and or 80 plus mile an hour wind potential. That gets a destructive tag is what that would initiate that for. And hurricane warnings go up too there. I'm sure there's others, but we haven't really dealt with those, so, tsunami warning, something like that. I would think would go off, but we don't deal with that here, like we're in Bradford County. But as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things, so again, that's kind of the breakdown there. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things, but it's always important to have multiple ways to get alerts. So, we don't want a repeat of what happened at the Guadalupe River on July 4th morning. We need folks to make sure they're paying attention here as these situations do evolve. I know we don't really post the flood warnings because sometimes they're a little bit, there's just so many sometimes with the river flooding potential. We used to try to do that, but then the offices, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, kind of do it a little differently. Normally, Tallahassee has a tendency to issue a lot more flash flood warnings, and then Jackson was issuing those flood warnings though on Tuesday morning. That's the first time I've really seen Jackson wasted that many flash flood warnings. The Jacksonville office is doing so many there for different parts of Marion, and of course we post those. Occasionally we'll post flood warnings, but the flash flood warnings we're posting all those and or coming on for them. I know there was one that had the extension. We didn't post it. It was kind of a short-term extension for the same area, but we're posting all the initial flash flood warnings there and or coming on for them as warranted here, because that means the rapidly worsening potential is there, because instead of just longer term, it's something that in theory can, the water levels can rise so quickly. Folks really, have a higher chance of being caught off guard and maybe, being in a life-threatening situation, especially though, that's the case when we have, the considerable catastrophic tag. But even the lower level tag indicates the potential is there. So as we go ahead and look at drought monitor, I know Marion County, they update this at 8 a.m. on Tuesdays with the data. So it'll be interesting to see, because I said, well, we were having all that rain at 8 a.m. Tuesday of this week, but this is from last week because they don't release it till tomorrow, Thursday. So I'll be curious to see. I hope, a lot of that drought will be getting wiped away in Marion by that update tomorrow, though, after all that rain we had. I mean, we had so much rain so quick, you don't want it. But, that where that severe drought is in South Florida, some of those areas, in extreme drought, I know they actually had a flood warning down there on that Tuesday, but, some areas still need rain. But, Marion County, we had that moderate drought in that one spot. That area actually got more rain than almost anybody, so that's a good thing. We just don't want too much too quick. We did have the flash flood warnings, but in Texas, they actually had some really bad drought, and then they had just all the disastrous flooding from the Guadalupe River. So you just never know. You got to remain alert here, but because sometimes it can just be too much too quick. But I know we're always on for any tornado warning storms within the 62 counties here. Watching things, tracking things here in the Weather Center. Facebook, Casey Cloud Reacts, Cloud Weather, Twitter /exit Cloud Casey, YouTube at Cloud Weather, Twitch Cloud Weather, always giving you guys the very latest here to protect you, your friends, your family. We're always on for any tornado warning storms on all the different streams as we're tracking things here. And then you can see our extended forecast. I know hot temperatures and lightning can be dangerous, so just use caution when outdoors at certain times. I mean, local people that have been here for a while know that, but we have new people coming in. It's good just to remind everybody that potential, heat can be deadly, lightning can be deadly. Just, part of the day, if you're taking precautions, you're fine, but other part, you got to be kind of careful here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the Weather Center for sure. It's just very important to kind of be mindful here of just the overall meteorological picture. You see 70% chance of rain on that Wednesday. It dips down Thursday a little. Friday, keeps dipping toward the weekend a little bit less, but it's hotter than, especially, with that type of heat in play. But any of this heat, you gotta go check that backseat of your car to make sure you don't leave your young person back there. Because even just a few minutes of the air conditioning off can really take a turn for the worst. And 15, 30 minutes can be, deadly as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things there, because the temperature it rises like an oven, to be quite honest, sadly. if the air's off and somebody's back there, the temperature in that car gets, way over 100, 115 even, because it just kind of worsens as, there's no airflow and there's sun coming in a lot of cases. But you see 60% chance there of that rain back as we get toward Tuesday there, as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. We start to see more moisture, but Friday through Monday, a little less of that, especially over a weekend, which is good. If you're going out on the beach, watch out though. Don't want to be getting out in the water if you're a poor swimmer. Whether there's a current risk, that's higher or not. You can always be careful, but and still watch out for some pop-up storms with lightning. But the chances of that lower. I know people will be going off to the beach to cool off. Just use common sense. Use precautions here. That are ones that are really thought of here in the meteorology community about, just trying to stay safe here. That's what it's all about. So, very important here as we're looking. You see above average, though, unfortunately, it will be hot. 96, 97, 98, that is not fun here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in the weather picture across North Florida and South Georgia. So that's kind of the storyline there. I know we're just always keeping our tabs on things here, as the situation does evolve. This is, heat advisory type scenario act. And again, maybe we hope not, but we haven't got to it yet. But we may even get to excessive heat warning criteria at some point, which is, even more dangerous there. You gotta really be careful, watch out for heat exhaust and heat stroke to evolve. So I think that's gonna do it for now. If there's any questions or comments, I think we pretty much covered everything we need to. And it is Smith Thunderstorm warning in South Dakota now. Let me go ahead and see, guys, that is for the Rapid City area, in fact. So let's go ahead and for those staying up late there, watching me live, I know they're in the mountain time zone. It's still up to midnight even out there as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. So it is about 12:32 there, mountain time, and the warning goes to 1:30 for Rapid City. And that means 60-mile-an-hour wind gust, the possibility, even in the metro there. So as you're looking in toward that part of South Dakota. So and you can see that on the velocity. Let me go ahead and pull that up for our late night viewers. You can see this moving toward Hill City, Silver City, and eventually Rapid City. You see these brighter colors, 50-mile-an-hour wind gust there. I definitely showing up on the velocity presentation as we're tracking the situation here for sure. There's some pretty bright pixels there on the wind mode of the Doppler. Hill City, Silver City, Rapid City. This warning goes for parts of Custer, Meade, Lawrence, and Pennington counties there in the lower parts of South Dakota until 1:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Rapid City, Hill City, Rapid Valley, Somerset, Black Hawk, Johnson, Sidon, Nemo, Keystone, and South Dakota, Piedmont, Silver City. You kind of get the idea. Mystic, Rockerville, Deerfield. This is all in South Dakota. So again, as we're tracking things, don't see any debris, don't see a lot of rotation, hardly any at all. No tornado possible tag, but there is some strong straight line winds that could end up moving into toward Rapid City there. As we're looking and tracking things into toward that vicinity. Well, that's something that they're watching in that Pennington County region. So as the situation does evolve. So that's kind of a national story right now at 2:34 a.m. Eastern Time on this Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. It is 12:34 a.m. Mountain Time in that part of the country. So that's something they're watching out there, but not overwhelming, but still could cause some issues, some lightning in there. Just like here, when thunder roars, you want to go indoors. So I'm going to wrap it up for now. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe. And we'll be back here as warranted in days to come. And with our next one, we'll update late Thursday, early Friday. Again, have a good night.